So the last time we were working on the Belgian fence project in the vegetable garden, you may recall that I was doing something completely cringeworthy, which was having to lop off these crabapple whips that I bought. I am not gonna lie, that was really scary. You might recall there was a gin and tonic involved in that activity. And then after that, there was nothing to do but wait. Well, you guys have asked for it, and now it's time for an update to see where we're at and where we go from here. So let me turn around the camera and show you. So this is what the crab apples look like today. All of them sprouted. Every one of them, some of them were a little slow. All of them sprouted pretty much where I wanted them to. The only difference is the one at the far end, which sprouted quite low on the stem. So if there was one in which that had to happen, that's probably the best one for that. But we've got nice big sprouts. So let me show you where we go from here. So the next step in this project is to start creating this framework and start training these trees. So we're going to start with these bamboo canes. You can see over here that I've already installed some bamboo canes that are going to create the framework for these to grow on. Now, I couldn't find bamboo canes. They're really hard to find right now for some reason that would be tall enough to sustain these to get to the top of the fence. So that will have to be dealt with. I think this will be more than enough for this year and probably next year, and then we can adjust the framework from there. But I want to show you where we go from here. Now, I've already done one side, but I'm going to walk you through the process of what I'm doing on this side, and then I'll show you the whole thing. So I've already tied all the joints, but I thought I'd just show you how I'm tying this. So now I'm just doing this with twine. So I just have a length of twine that's doubled over so that the ends are more or less even. And so you have a loop on one side. And you know, you just start by going one way first, giving it a bunch of wraps. And then you have to go the other way. And of course you want to go in opposite directions when you go that way. Now, I had to tie some of these really quite tightly because I sort of had to bend the bamboo to go to the right places, because getting the angles right on this quite formal fence was a little challenging. So now I'm on my last wrap here, and I'm going to take the loop around to the back here and put the ends through. In fact, hang on, I'm going to go one less loop on that. Okay, so I'm going to go around to the back, go through the loop, and then that gives you some leverage to pull that really tight. And then I just go up to the nearest piece of bamboo, and I just tie a couple of half hitches in there. And that should hold that tight, but by leaving that loop in there, you get a little bit of leverage to pull that nice and tight. So now we're at the point where we need to tie in the stems. Now this one's pretty easy because it just has two. Now what I'm using to tie in everything is just this. I'm just using this plastic tape. I don't really love the plastic, but this will last for a long time. But most of all, it will be plenty flexible, so that, because you don't want to tie these in tight. You don't want to bend anything too much. You want to give them a little bit of room to move around. You're just trying to guide them in the right spot. And I'm going to tie them pretty low on the stems so that I can maneuver the top bit of this as we go along. And on this one, it's quite easy because there's no decisions to be made. There's just these two, they're facing the right direction. This was about the optimal situation in terms of what I could have hoped for when I was cutting. But not all of them worked out that way. So I will show you what happens when you've got a lot of stems and you have to make some decisions. So you can see on this one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stems. One needs to go straight up because this is the end of the road, and one needs to go this way. Now, I could not get the angle quite right on this because of where the post had to go. So it's hard to, what I'm going to have to do is just very lightly pull this one over, because really what I was trying to do was get the stakes to be right at the top here. and they're obviously not on this case, which I couldn't do. So the first thing I'm going to do is just decide which stems are going to stay and which are going to go. And in this case, for sure, this one coming straight out the front is going to go, because that doesn't really make sense for either the one that needs to go at an angle or the one that's going up right now over here. Actually, this one is already there, so I think the thing to do is to take this one out as well. Now, tying the one that's going to go straight up in is no problem. That's a no-brainer. Now, I expect that these ones that are pointed straight up, right, will probably grow a little stronger and a little faster than the rest of them, just because that's how plants grow. When they go straight up, they tend to grow a little bit more vigorously. Now, if there had been a sprout down here coming out this way, that's what I would have used in this case, but there's not. So I'm just going to have to, I'm going to take a longer piece though. So I'm just going to have to sort of suggest to this, because again, I don't want to take any chances of breaking this stem. So I'm going to tie this in really, really loosely just to get it headed in the right direction. And then, you know, we'll fine tune this as we go along, but I don't want to take any chances of breaking one of these stems. So that's sort of that way. Now let's go down to this next one. Okay, same deal on this one. We've got 4 stems and we just have to decide which one. Now these 3 are all coming out of the same spot. So it makes sense to keep one of these 3 and move that one over there. And on this one, I'm going to tie this in before I cut the other ones, just in case, you know, I would make a big mistake and break something. That way I still have 2 backups. I apologize about my head shading this process. Okay, now I can just go in here and take out these other 2. Do you see the green at the bottom of this? That is actually a shoot from the rootstock of this. So what I'll need to do is make sure I cut that green off. Often the rootstock is stronger grower than the top. So if you let the rootstock get growing, you will lose the top. Okay, so that's that job done. That's really all where it needs to go. I would say this summer I will just keep tying it in as it grows. We'll make sure it stays watered. I do have drip irrigation running to these. It's interesting, I have to really watch the drip irrigation because the soil on this side is very sandy and the soil on this side is more clay. Obviously some soil was brought in at some point. So I really have to make sure I don't overwater on this side and make sure that this side is getting enough water. So that is a bit of a challenge. But, I mean, obviously, I think you can tell I'm just thrilled that this worked. I thought it would. Everything said it should. But, you know, when you're chopping off the top of a tree, there is a certain amount of faith that you're putting in everything to work out okay. And it did so far. So we are on our way to growing this fence. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how far this grows this year. But I enjoy watching it and I hope you do too. So again, you know there will be more updates of this coming this year, so stay tuned and let me know what you think. If you thought it was going to work or not, you can be honest now.
I've been down, I've been everywhere, but I'm all right now. I'm all right. I nearly drowned in my own despair, but I'm all right now. Yeah. Are we he's missing